Hello, this is Artemis_anime, and today I am reading Immortality is the Definition of Looks Can Be Deceiving by TheFoggyLondonView. Chapter 2. Shinzo feels targeted, while Todoroki's just confused. The meeting with Minetta in Nezu's office was quick. In 15 minutes, Izuku had his parents informed of the decision, as well as had him enrolled in an all-boys school that's known for their zero-tolerance policies. There will be no girls for him to try and spy on and harass, and there will be no leeway from the teachers. He cannot be a hero or a decent human being if he doesn't have respect for women or their boundaries, and Izuku will not have him hanging around here making his female students uncomfortable. He made sure to tell the headmaster of the school about why he's sending Minetta to them while making eye contact with the student so he knows exactly why he's being expelled. Izuku knows this headmaster personally, and he was once one of his Gen Ed kids, so he was more than happy to personally assure Izuku that Minetta will be taught proper manners and respect at his school. He will graduate a model citizen or not at all. It's funny how all of Izuku's favorite students tend to grow into people with a strict, no-nonsense teaching style. He walked Minetta to the front gate where his parents were waiting and let them take him home. Before they left, however, he reminded the parents of the actions that their son can and will come to reflect badly on them if they can't take an active steps to work with his new school in fixing the problems. No more excuses. He made sure not to sound like he was blaming them, because parents don't listen when you blame them, but also made sure he still got his point across. Oh, he absolutely, at least partially blamed them. After that, Izuku walked back inside and went to buy some lunch in the cafeteria. He waited in line, blending in with the students as easily as he had that morning. Lunch Rust was startled to see him, obviously recognizing him, but was quick to hand him a nice big helping of katsuran instead of freaking out and making a scene. Izuku thanked him, and he only got a couple of looks from the students closest to him when Lunch Rush called him Midoriya-sensei, as he wished him a good lunch. Izuku glanced around the cafeteria and debated on whether or not to eat here and sit with one of the unsuspecting students, or take his meal elsewhere, like his office or the staff room. Remembering Todoroki might be coming by in a bit for the letter, he decided his office would be the right place to eat today. So he walked with his food to his personal office. The walk was mostly peaceful, except for when Present Mike saw him in the hall and squawked like a startled chicken before running at full speed in the opposite direction. Izuku pulled out his phone and pulled up his contacts, where he was already saved all the teachers' phone numbers, and texted Mike a warning.
Izuku, tell anyone I'm here who doesn't already know, and I'll leave live bugs all over your office. Izuku, this is Midoriya, BTW.
A few moments later, his phone buzzed with a reply.
Mike, okay, you don't have to threaten me. Mike, you're still as scary as you were when I was 15. Izuku, good. Mike, good that I'm keeping my mouth shut, or good that you still scare me? Izuku, smiley face emoticon.
He put his phone away and finished his walk, only to see Todoroki was already there, waiting at his door, not seeming to know what else to do. Jeez, kid, did you inhale your food or something? Lunch isn't even half over. Todoroki turned to him and blinked. Oh, did you not want me this early? Nah, you're fine. Izuku waved him off as he pulled out his office key and unlocked his door. You'll just have to sit here with me for a bit while I eat and get that letter ready. Todoroki simply nodded and followed Izuku inside. He sat on the armchair Izuku pointed him to, situated in front of his desk, and glanced around. The office was pretty big, so the space didn't feel claustrophobic, despite all the things inside of it. His gaze snapped back to Izuku when he heard the thud, but it was just Izuku closing one of his desk drawers. You want a Snickers, kid? Todoroki stared at Izuku blankly as the teacher held a full-sized Snickers bar out to him. What? Snickers bar. It's candy. Want it or not? Izuku prompted. Todoroki didn't really know what to do, so he just took it. Okay. That seemed to satisfy Izuku, who opened his laptop and began eating his lunch while sitting crisscross in his desk chair. It was silent for a few moments before Izuku then paused and gestured to the candy bar in Todoroki's hand with an open eye and a raised brow, and stared him down until he opened it and began eating it, which made Izuku give a nod in approval. So, Izuku spoke up after getting about halfway through his food. On a scale of getting a tooth pulled out without amnesia to being kicked in the balls 5 times by a very pent-up 8-year-old wearing cleats. How much does Endeavor suck? Todoroki froze mid-chew to stare at Izuku, not quite believing what came out of his teacher's mouth. First, Izuku gives him a Snickers and now he's trashing his dad? Izuku tilted his head to the side. What? Too soon? Todoroki swallowed the food in his mouth. I guess you don't particularly like Endeavor then. Man's a dick. If I had been here during the time he attended this school, I wouldn't have allowed him to graduate. But I was away on a project at the time, Izuku said, way too casually for someone openly trash-talking the number 2 pro hero. That man is so self-absorbed and power-hungry. I don't think he's capable of loving anything but himself. I can't imagine what it's like to grow up under someone like him. Well, I lived through the Crow Wars, but that's a bit different. Todoroki considered what he wanted to say for a moment. Why are we talking about Endeavor? I thought I was just here to get this letter, and then you shoved candy bar at me. And now this? If you didn't want the candy, you didn't have to take it, Izuku said. No, I wanted it. Todoroki held the half-eaten candy bar closer protectively. Can you explain? I'm confused as to what's going on. Izuku sighed, but didn't seem too annoyed or anything. I'm just being friendly, kid. Yeah, maybe I jumped the gun a bit with my opening line, but I'm not trying to force anything out of you. You don't want to talk about it? Then don't. I'm not expecting your life story. You only met me a few hours ago, for fuck's sake, Izuku told him with a shrug. But, that being said, my door is open if you want someone to talk to, okay? I don't care about what. Want to complain about your dad? Go for it. Want to lament about a crush? I'm all ears, as long as you don't ask for advice about it. I'm shit with love advice. Heck, you're free to just stop by for a candy bar if you want. Just don't tell anyone where you got it. This is my secret stash. You're a lot less intimidating when you're rambling, Todoroki noted. Izuku laughed at that. I'm only scary when I need to be. You kids would not have taken me seriously if I acted nice from the start. I mean, I look 17, for fuck's sake. Izuku grabbed a pack of Twizzlers from his candy stash. But right now, we're just having a friendly conversation. I have no reason to be intimidating, and you're under no obligation to tell me anything you don't want to. Get the picture yet? Todoroki nodded slowly. Yeah, I think so. Good. Advising seasons will be different, but casual shit has no bar to meet, Izuku said with a Twizzler hanging from his mouth. Now, you wanted that letter, right? Yes. Okay, give me 1 sec. The template I need is somewhere around here. Let me see. Izuku said while messing up with his laptop. Let's see. Quirk research, academic paper, list of 1973's top disco hits, muffin recipe. Muffin recipe? Todoroki asked, more to himself than Izuku. Izuku spared him a glance. I like muffins. Todoroki glanced around the room. He wasn't sure what to say, and he felt like he had accidentally started another conversation, and now he was obligated to continue it since he got a reply. It took an awkward amount of time to think of something, but he finally did it. Do you, cook a lot then? Wow, that sounded pathetic, even to him. He's really not good at this whole being social and holding conversations thing. I was a chef for about 40 years starting around the 2060s. I was trying something new, so yes, I can cook quite well, but it's not really my thing, so no, I don't cook all that much, Izuku replied while typing. Like, I don't actually have to eat. My quirk will make me self-sustaining if I choose not to because of its adaptability access, so it doesn't really matter, but Twizzlers are fucking amazing, so fuck that. Todoroki blinked. It was like Izuku didn't even notice how awkward he is. And print. Izuku tapped a key on his computer, and the sound of a printer could be heard somewhere in the room. He pulled a sheet of paper from somewhere below his desk and pulled a pen from the pencil cup on his desk. Would it piss your dad off if I signed this in pink glitter gel pen? Yeah, probably. Would you receive retaliation for it? Todoroki wasn't expecting that particular question. I'd be fine. but he'll make me train harder if he's upset. Izuku didn't quite seem like he believed him. Let me print one more thing out. I don't normally send these out until later, but... Izuku typed out a few more minutes before printing out another paper. He signed both in sparkly pink gel pens. There we go. Now where did I put my envelopes? Hoping for an explanation, Todoroki watched Izuku search around. After almost falling out of his chair, Izuku held up 2 envelopes with the UA seal on the front in triumph. He did not, however, explain anything, so Todoroki was forced to ask. What was in the second letter? Izuku folded the letters carefully and put them in the envelopes before answering. It's a notice that I'd be issuing out of the school schedule and the lifestyle changes to varying degrees depending on the student's needs. He pulled out a pack of smiley face stickers out of a drawer. This ranges from training time to nutritional requirements to amount of time spent on socialization with peers, sleep schedules, and an amount of volunteer hours. Is going that far really that necessary? Todoroki asked. Becoming a hero involves a lot more than just training, kid. It also involves taking care of yourself properly, and I mean every aspect of yourself, Izuku informed. Think of your bodily health, mental state, emotional needs, and social needs like individual status meters that must be maintained. If any of them are neglected and become too low, they will be negative repercussions to your health, which will affect how well you do in your job as a hero, as well as life and relationships in general. Part of what I do as an advisor is to help kids like you learn how to properly maintain those meters. This usually involves a schedule and lifestyle changes to some degree. Todoroki didn't have much else to say to that. Now, there's occasionally some pushback from strict parents or stubborn students, which is why I have a letter I send out before I make changes. However, I'm a professional and have been doing this longer than whoever has been ejecting has been alive. So I always win in the end, Izuku said. After all, I have no problem expelling students, and that usually frightens both the students and parents into listening to. Has it never not worked? Well, if it doesn't work on the student, they weren't serious enough about being a hero to begin with. And if it doesn't work on the parent? Todoroki asked. Well, Izuku said with a frightening smile, if a parent wants to keep control so badly they'd rather their child gets expelled from a top school than let them follow a health management plan made by a professional, something is usually wrong. So I use my police certification to declare a probable cause, get myself a search warrant, and pay them a nice surprise visit. If action needs to be taken, my niece is a social worker with an impressive record, and I have a law degree. Izuku pointed to one of the frames on the wall. Todoroki looked and saw it was a PhD in law, and there was a law certification hanging beside it. A quick glance around showed a lot of the frames covering the wall were degrees and certificates. He tried to count them, but Izuku beat him to it. I have 28 PhDs and more lesser degrees along whatever certifications are required to legally practice said fields, Izuku said. When you live forever, you might as well do everything, you know? Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Izuku looked at the clock. Well, lunch is almost over, and I still have things to get ready for my next class, so you'd better get going. Here's your letters. I added a note in the second one that I put you through hell already today, and I am ordering you and all of your classmates not to do any more trainings, so you're rested for tomorrow. But you didn't tell my classmates that, and we already did a quirk assessment, and that was it. Yeah, but Endeavor doesn't know that. All he knows is I'm the #1 quirk specialist in the world, which means I know what I'm about. So as long as you don't tell him, he'll never know, Izuku said, and gave him a wink. Todoroki nodded and took the letters Izuku was now holding out to him. They were held closed by a single funny smiley face sticker on each. The stickers clashed wildly with the official serious-looking envelope that featured the UA seal printed on the front, much like Todoroki imagined the letters did with sparkly pink gel pen. Oh, and one more thing. Todoroki looked up only to see Izuku lean over his desk to briefly poke his cheek while saying boop, before sitting back down in his chair with a pleased smile. What? Izuku poked his own cheek, mirroring where he poked Todoroki. Smile. You earned a sticker. Everyone loves stickers. Todoroki left Izuku's office, still not quite sure what happened. One thing he is sure of, though, is that the letters in his hands are a good representation of Izuku. They seem official and important, like they should be treated very seriously. But then you see the silly little bits like the funny face stickers and the pink sparkle gel pen, and it throws you off and you no longer know what to expect. Izuku took the stack of freshly printed papers now secured with a binder clip and slid them neatly into a manila file that he labeled 1C gold sheets. With folder in hand, he grabbed his bag and the rest of his supplies he'd gathered and left for class, only pausing to lock his office behind him. When he got to there, lunch wasn't quite over yet, so he wasn't expecting anyone. However, one of his students was already in the classroom taking a nap at his desk. Well, if he's in here early, he gets help. So Izuku walked over and knocked on the student's desk. The kid blinked awake, sat up, then sat up straighter when he saw Izuku by his desk. He didn't seem too sure if he was in trouble or not. Izuku reached into his bag and took out a Twizzler, which he then offered to his student, who now had the same confused look Todoroki had when he offered him the Snickers. It's candy. Either take it, or I'll eat it instead. The Twizzler was hesitantly taken from him. Your name is Satoshi Shinzo, right? Uh-huh. Am I in trouble for sleeping? No, but only because class hasn't started yet, Izuku said. Now, I want you to help me until it does. Hitoshi relaxed slightly. Alright, what do you need me to do? I need papers passed around, one set per desk, in a certain order. Think you can do that? Yeah, Hitoshi agreed, following Izuku to the front of the room. Which order? From top to bottom, syllabus, consent form, goal packet, pop quiz. Izuku listed as he pulled out the proper stacks of paper from his bag and set them on the table by the podium. Why do we have a quiz? We haven't been taught anything yet, Hitoshi asked, with more mild curiosity than complaint. Precisely, Izuku responded, sitting at the table next to the 4 stacks of paper. I'm gauging how much you already know. Makes sense, Hitoshi shrugged, putting the Twizzler in his mouth so that his hands would be free. He grabbed the first stack of papers and got to work. While he passed the papers out, he could feel Izuku watching him. It was a bit unnerving. It felt like every single move he made was being stuttered far more closely than he felt necessary. Izuku didn't move from the table and let him do all the work, instead, while eating Twizzlers. Why are you in here and not in the cafeteria? The question startled him. Am I not allowed to be in here during lunch? Don't avoid the question. Izuku's voice held a very clear warning. Everyone else from 1C was sitting together in a few groups in the cafeteria, but you weren't even in the room. Why? Hitoshi hesitated. Surely Izuku wouldn't think like everyone else does, right? And it's not like his reasoning is unfounded. Still. He glanced at his teacher and saw Izuku's impatience with his silence growing, mouth set in an annoyed line. For someone with all the time in the world, it's obvious Izuku won't tolerate people wasting said time. There's no point in getting to know people who will just dump me when they learn what my quirk is, Hitoshi finally said. I have no time for people who judge others based on their quirks or lack thereof, Izuku stated firmly. If anyone tweets you poorly for your quirk, you tell me immediately. It wasn't a suggestion. Sure thing, Midoriya-sensei, Hitoshi agreed, not feeling like he had much other choice. After he'd passed the papers out into a neat stack on each desk, Izuku gave him a second Twizzler, then sent him back into his seat to finish his 1.5 Twizzlers. The first bell rang, and shortly after, the rest of the class walked back into the classroom. They all quickly went to their seats and sat quietly upon seeing Izuku was already there. Izuku pulled out another Twizzler and took a bite after the final bell rang. He scanned the class, not moving from his spot on the top of the table. When he decided they were all paying attention to a satisfactory degree, he finally began class. Welcome back, class. I hope you all had a good time at orientation, but I know Nazu designed the thing to be as tedious as possible to everyone forced to sit through it. Little pleasures, I guess, Izuku greeted, while eating his Twizzler. But now it's over, so you're all at my mercy for the rest of the day. Well, mercy probably isn't the right word. I have already expelled one student today. The class shifted uncomfortably. So it wasn't a joke earlier. He really would expel them if they weren't careful. But I digress. Right now, there are 2 things we must go over. There's a lot to cover, so let's just jump right in, shall we? Izuku scanned the class to make sure he had their full attention. First off, my seniority gives me the power to make changes to any student's course schedule, among other things, without committee approval. Only Nezu can overturn my judgment. Raise your hands if you can tell me what that means for you. The class was silent. Some seemed like they were trying to figure out, but a lot just seemed lost. Izuku waited patiently, casually twirling his Twizzlers as he scanned the room for the signs of one of them beginning to put two and two together. This was a small test, in a way. He always liked the ones who could already make something out of the scrap he gives the best. He hummed a bit before the corners of his mouth tipped up. There it was. Hitoshi hadn't said a word and didn't raise his hand, but Izuku saw it. He saw the way his eyes widened and realization dawned on him. Oh yes, he figured it out, and judging by the look on his face, the implications of it were not lost on him. He glanced up to steal a glance at his teacher, only to meet Izuku's predatory gaze fixed on him. Hitoshi, you seem to have come up with an idea. Care to share with the class? Hitoshi didn't particularly care for all the eyes on him, nor the way his teacher smirked at him like he was a particularly interesting piece of prey. The guy made him feel like a mouse trapped in the claws of a cat who decided to play with him a little while longer, because he wasn't quite ready to finish him off yet. He felt it while Izuku watched him pass out the papers, and it hadn't left sense. Still, he had a goal here. He wanted to move to heroics, and he couldn't do that if he got expelled for not answering. Besides, when he does get to heroics, he'll have to deal with Midoriya even more so. So no matter how targeted that look Midoriya keeps giving him makes him feel, he might as well start getting used to the guy now. It means, Hitoshi spoke, not especially loud, but loud enough. It means you can move students to different courses as you see fit. You could transfer any of us to heroics if you felt we were worthy. Izuku was clearly pleased with him, but Hitoshi refused to look at him in an attempt to push off the feeling he just became the confirmed subject of interest to some kind of evil entity. The rest of the class didn't seem to see or feel it, too busy murmuring excitedly amongst themselves about the prospects of being able to get into the hero course. But Hitoshi couldn't help but feel singled out. Izuku cleared his throat and the class hushed, becoming immediately attentive. Some students even took out their notebooks to take notes. Hitoshi was one of the note-takers, but he was trying to be discreet enough that Izuku wouldn't notice him. He didn't need more of his teacher's attention. Much later, he'd look back and see that hiding had always just been a waste of energy. His fate had been sealed. It had just been too soon for him to realize that. Pleased with the attention, Izuku gave a nod of approval. Hitoshi is correct. In fact, I'm the homeroom teacher for Gen Ed specifically, so I can give kids without power-packing quirks an actual chance into getting into heroics, Izuku explained. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Most people don't have what it takes to earn a transfer. My standards are high, and I expect them to be consistently met, if not exceeded. All or nothing. No exceptions. Am I understood? There were a few murmurs of agreement. Speak clearly when I ask you a question, Izuku scolded. Yes, Midoriya-sensei, the class chanted. That's better, Izuku gave a nod of approval. Now, while transfers are rare, I promise it's not impossible. In fact, Class 1A's homeroom teacher started out right here in my Gen Ed homeroom classroom. The boy on the left side of the room raised his hand, and Izuku gestured for him to speak. Which hero teaches Class 1A? That would be Eraserhead. He's an underground hero, so I doubt many of you have heard of him. He doesn't particularly care for media attention, Izuku replied, noting how Hitoshi looked up at the name drop. And before you kids get any ideas, don't go bothering him. I promise you the most you'll get from him is detention and me permanently revoking any chance you've had at transfer. You got it? Yes, Midoriya-sensei, the class replied, speaking clearly. Ah, quick learners, Izuku said, pleased. Now that we've established what I can do, let's get down to actual class matters. As you can see, you all have a stack of papers on your desk. We'll tackle them in order. Izuku waited while the class picked up the packet before continuing. First up is the syllabus. It's pretty self-explanatory what that is. I expect you all to read it in its entirety by tomorrow. My UA email is listed on it if you need to contact me. Moving on. Izuku gave him class a moment before getting on to the next paper. This is a consent form. Right now, you only have access to academic advising. Things like quirk advising, supervised quirk use, and access to the UA training gym are reserved only for hero course, so I can't let you use those resources without your parents' permission. So if you're looking to switch courses at some point, get that assigned. Any questions so far? There were some grumblings, but no one had any questions, so Izuku moved on. The next stack is your homework assignment. There were some groans from the whole class, and Izuku rolled his eyes. Calm down, it's not like that. It's a goal sheet. Well, it's more of a packet, but anyway, this assignment is designed to help me figure out what you're about, what your goals are, and where to start working with you. You must be 100% truthful while filling this out. I do not tolerate being deceived, and I have expelled kids over putting down false information. Am I making myself clear? Yes, Midoriya-sensei? Izuku really had missed hearing that obedient chorus these past 6 years. Good. Remember, this assignment is designed to help me help you. I'm not grading you on any part of it. It's just so that I can make sure you get the most from your time here. But, speaking of grading, Izuku got a wicked grin on his face. The last thing on your stack is a pop quiz on quirk studies and quirk history. There was absolute upset and betrayal that erupted in this room, and it was amazing, and Izuku soaked it up with that grin on his face. Oh, come on now, it's not that bad. I even went easy on you and made it only 50 questions, all multiple choice. Izuku was ecstatic with the utter anguish he was causing his class. Come on, children, grab a pencil and get started. This test is due by the last bell. The class did as they were told, as they collectively tried to ignore how utterly gleeful their teacher was, as he sat there in front, eating twiddlers and watching them. They didn't know if they loved or hated him, just that Izuku Midoriya was one hardcore and sadistic motherfucker and should probably be feared on principle. Once the last bell rang, everyone turned in their tests and left with their things before Izuku could add anything else to the homework they already had to do. As he headed out, Hitoshi took one last glance back to behind his better judgment, and in that moment he could have sworn Izuku winked at him. He didn't know what that means, but he has the feeling in the pit of his stomach that he has no choice in the matter, whatever that matter may end up being. Once his students had left, Izuku packed up his things and left the room as well. He went back to his office to finish up the schedule for the hero course advising sessions. After that, he needs to get the copies to each of the respective homeroom teachers, then he can head home and start grading. Once he got to his office, however, there were 2 familiar students waiting for him. Is there a reason you're loitering outside of my office? Bakugo said nothing and kept leaning against the wall, ignoring the world. The other student, however, straightened up and faced Izuku head-on to answer him directly. Midoriya-sensei. My name is Tenya Ida, and I am here to apologize for scolding you this morning. I was not aware you were a teacher. Izuku watched him for a moment, just long enough to make him sweat, before replying. I will accept your apology when you've actually realized what you've done wrong. As it is, you do not seem to fully grasp how your actions were incorrect. We can speak more on this in your advising session. For now, simply head home. Ida seemed a bit confused and taken aback, but nodded nevertheless. Of course, Midoriya-sensei. Izuku waited for Ida's steps to fade and leave, only him and Bakugo alone in the hallway, before stepping forward to unlock his office door. So, what are you hanging around my office for, kiddo? And that was Chapter 2. Shinzo feels targeted while Todoroki's just confused of Immortality is the definition of looks can be deceiving by TheFoggyLondonView. Sorry for the poor quality of this recording. I am recording it at my grandma's house, and I am used to recording at my home, so I don't have my full setup here, but I will look forward to seeing you guys next week. Bye!